If you like your holiday shaken but not stirred, maybe you should head for Scotland.
In this week's travel show, we find out why.
Coming up on this week's programme, we go on the trail of 007 and find out why rich Russians love to live the high life in the Highlands. We head to New Orleans for a taste of classic Southern hospitality.
The city didn't make this sandwich made this city.
And our global guru Simon Calder gives us advice on what to do if you're faced with a stress-inducing 18-hour airport stopover.
Welcome to the travel show, coming to you this week from the Chinese resort island of Hainan. Later on in the show, we find out if this place lives up to its reputation as the French Riviera of the East. Stay tuned for that, but first...
Scotland is a country that's famous for stunning scenery and vibrant culture, but it's also the ancestral home of one of film's most famous fictional characters, and he's now being used to entice rich Russian and Chinese tourists who want a taste of the 007 lifestyle, as Anna Holligan now reports.
Welcome to Glen Etive, the location for the final scenes in the James Bond movie Skyfall. And for a price, Roberts and his company will lend you their luxury Aston Martin, 007's car of choice, for a trip through this stunning landscape.
James Bond, if in a way, is a kind of a tag to bring people here and appreciate this most stunning, beautiful scenery.
For most of us, owning one of these could only ever be the stuff of fantasies. The least expensive Aston Martin will put an £85,000 dent in your bank account. One of these Aston Martin driving weekends is slightly more affordable, but still per person it costs more than £1,200. And unlike Bond, you do have to give the car back afterwards. Scotland has the natural beauty, but businesses are being advised by the banks to do more to understand their client demographic. Tapping into the psyche of a James Bond fan is seen as one way of doing that. But will a Scottish breakfast served with the most expensive champagne really be enough to tempt those wealthy Russian and Chinese tourists? Black pudding, mushrooms, and what looks like your standard Scottish haggis. So what exactly makes this a James Bond breakfast?
Because the eggs are scrambled and not fried.
I'd like to know why this particular James Bond audience is being targeted by the Scottish tourism industry.
Because it's such a lucrative audience, but also we know that the visitor numbers are really on the increase.
From places like Russia, China and Brazil, where they say the Bond brand is already big, and Scottish exports can increase the intrigue.
Really high-end products which are being exported all over the world, and if people are seeing a bit of that part of Scotland in their own countries, it really inspires them to want to come and really see where it's made. And having added to that some places like Skyfall being seen on the big screen, it's a fantastic advert for Scotland.
The Scottish whisky experience is one of the country's most popular attractions. May has been designated Whisky Month. Some cultures may not approve of a country officially promoting itself through alcohol, but here in Scotland, it's served up as an educational experience. Through here, we have the largest collection of Scotch whiskies in the world. There are 3,384 bottles in here, and they'll even teach you how to identify your own perfect Scotch to match your personality, palates and preferences, so you can become a connoisseur just like James Bond.
the Chinese, the Russians and the Brazilians, you know, all three of those cultures that we have coming through in strong numbers at the moment. I think they just like the edginess of it. I think that, you know, I think especially in the last film where you saw, you know, the kind of slightly more edgy character of James Bond coming through in that, and you saw so much of the rugged, wild countryside in Scotland, and I think we're seen as being one of those countries that still is very unspoiled, which, you know, is the case. I think if things are authentic, it works. I think there's no point trying to take an image that comes through in a film and say, well, that film was filmed here, so let's use it and let's kind of build something around that. But I think if it's authentic and it's integral, then that can absolutely be embraced by people. And I think in this instance, that's certainly the case.
Seaplanes feature in 3 James Bond films: Licence to Kill, Man with the Golden Gun and Casino Royale. So what is it about these aircraft that make them so popular with James Bond?
These iconic planes hark back to the halcyon days, a time when travel was exclusive, exotic and romantic. Some may say the antithesis of today's travel experiences.
This is the only commercial seaplane operating in the UK. It soars over Loch Lomond, a number of James Bond film locations, and gives a bird's eye view of Britain's nuclear missile sites. Over the last year, David has seen a big increase in Russian clients.
Russians do enjoy the hunting and fishing, and then the whiskey. There's a whole load of things there that certainly Scotland and Russia have got in common. A little bit macho perhaps.
What are the chances that as a BBC travel show special we could have a wee go at controlling this seaplane?
And it wouldn't be a James Bond experience without flying the plane yourself.
Just look outside.
In the James Bond films, Russians often used to play the bad guys.
If Scotland can successfully flip the script, Russian tourists could soon be soaring up to hero status.
Alan Holligan there reporting on 007 and his Scottish connections. And if you're thinking about going to Scotland on holiday, then here's the travel show guide to things to think about before you go.
2014 is the year of homecoming in Scotland, a 12-month spectacular celebrating all things Scottish, with more than 800 events taking place up and down the country, including everything from bike races to huge music concerts. It's even playing host to the Ryder Cup golf tournament. Events run until December the 31st. Glasgow is the host city for this year's Commonwealth Games in July, which will bring together thousands of elite athletes and excited spectators to join an incredible festival of sport and culture. Whether you're an athlete or a sports fan, the countdown to Scotland's biggest ever party is truly on. The event is taking place until the 3rd of August. If art's your thing, then try this for size. The Kelpies is Scotland's largest art installation and has recently opened to the public. For those who wish to delve even further into the Kelpie experience, guided tours are available. It will allow you a unique viewpoint looking up from inside the 300-ton sculpture at Helix Park in Falkirk. Finally, a must-see is the Bellrock Lighthouse, built off the coast of Angus between 1807 and 1810. It's the world's oldest sea-washed lighthouse and can be seen over 11 miles out to sea. Still to come on the Travel Show. Our global guru Simon looks into the confusing and sometimes expensive world of travel insurance for the elderly. But first, here's a look at this week's travel update. An exhibition of artifacts stolen during the 2011 uprising has opened at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. So far, over 1,400 items have been tracked down in countries as far away as Brazil and New Zealand. Among the objects recovered was a golden statue of the pharaoh Tutankhamun. In the American capital, the Washington Monument has finally reopened to the public. The iconic 555-foot structure was damaged following a rare earthquake that struck nearly 3 years ago. Now, after extensive repairs, you can once again take the 70-second elevator ride to the top for views of the Capitol building and the Lincoln and Jefferson memorials. And if you're a fan of the flat pack, then you might be thrilled to hear that IKEA is planning to open a museum at the site of its first ever shop, which opened in the town of Älmhult in Sweden in 1943. Now, if you've spent one too many public holidays trying to assemble a wardrobe, then you might want to give it a miss.
Food is the fabric of New Orleans. It is the lifeblood of this city.
It wasn't what I expected. It's really rich, it's really nice.
And no dish speaks to its soul quite like po' boys, an iconic sandwich filled with copious shrimp, tender shredded beef, or local fare.
It's not a bad sandwich to eat all day.
Welcome to the Big Easy. We landed in the bayou on a mission to chase down the history of the po' boy. As the day began, we hit the road to uncover a place where the past and present meet, Parkway Bakery. Parkway opened in the 1910s near the Bayou St. Jean. For a decade, it lay dormant until Jay Nix brought it back to life in 2003.
This place it's not just a restaurant in New Orleans.
That's right.
It's an institution. It's a place that people bring their families, not just for the food, but for remember when they were kids and show their grandkids.
In 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit. Parkway was shuttered. It was then that Nix's nephew Justin stepped in.
I love this place. And to see it dead and not coming back, I wouldn't have.
What is it about the po' boy that has that power to do that brings people together?
I say this, the city didn't make this sandwich. This sandwich made this city.
In August 1929, streetcar conductors launched a strike over contract negotiations.
We have 1,100 men who are on strike. Their families are in need of food.
Enter Clovis and Benny Martin, former conductors turned cafe owners who began giving free sandwiches to the strikers.
And the word spread very quickly that Martin Brothers had invented this new sandwich, and they're feeding those poor boys on strike.
And so the po' boy was born.
Do you know what that first po' boy looked like?
What the first po' boys most likely were from oral history was cheap cuts of meat, cold cuts, and first what they were promised was free meals.
A letter to the strikers from the Martin Brothers backs this story. "We are with you till hell freezes over," it famously reads.
But there's this core of people who are greeted by, here comes one of those poor boys.
Can I taste it?
Yeah, I mean, it's off the hook.
Yeah, let's do that.
But standard here is dressed.
Okay.
You know what dress means?
Dress means mayo, lettuce, pickles, tomato.
Boom, you got it, babe. Chuck roast, do a little thin layer of that. And then we're gonna put some Louisiana fried shrimp and a light, crispy batter. A little cheese on that, a little love on it. Epitome of New Orleans.
This is easily the best roast beef I've ever had.
Having tasted the po' boy's past, we set out to discover its future at Milk Bar. Opened by an expat team, this unassuming shop brings together global flavors between slices of bread with innovative po' boys.
I guess it's sort of like the Milk Bar is a little bit of a new school take on the po' boy that takes into account, that kind of brings in all of these great flavors from around the world.
14 hours and too many po' boys to count later, the story of the po' boy in New Orleans proved itself as engendered here as the sounds of the streetcar. And it is indeed the great New Orleans equalizer, a humble sandwich over which generations have come together during times of weakness and strength with love for a place they will always call home.
Still to come on this week's travel show.
I'll be asking whether this resort called Sanya is China's answer to the French Riviera.
We'll see you after the break. The Travel Show, your essential guide wherever you're heading.
Welcome to the slice of the travel show that aims to make your travelling life easier. Lawrence Wiles is leaving Essex to travel to Manila via Brunei.
Can I leave the airport during an 18-hour stopover?
You certainly can. Citizens of more than 50 nations are able to enter the tiny state on the northwest coast of Borneo without a visa for short stays. You can explore the capital, Bandar, and perhaps even make a brief visit to the dense jungle of Ulu Temburong National Park. One word of warning: if you're travelling to Brunei during Ramadan, which begins at the end of June, a new criminal code makes eating, drinking or smoking in public during the fasting hours an offence punishable by a year in prison. Glynis Parks is infuriated by the high price of travel insurance for people over 65 with pre-existing medical conditions. She and her husband have just retired. Congratulations. He has a heart condition that was successfully treated, but she says,
"We've tried to obtain travel insurance for a trip to the US and have been quoted a staggering premium of £1,500 for a single trip."
Glynis, the travel insurance industry is extremely competitive and rival companies are hungry for your business at the right price. The sad fact is, the older you get, the higher the premiums, particularly for travellers with medical conditions. For trips within the European Union and for other countries, including Australia, that have reciprocal arrangements with Britain, medical treatment is effectively free. You won't qualify for an air ambulance home in a medical emergency, but it could provide the essential health cover you need. Finally, from the Caribbean island of Grenada, Gina Waggott got in touch with the Travel Show about a ticket she has that she can no longer use.
My partner and I flew out from Britain with a plan to sail our boat from here in Grenada down to Cartagena in Colombia, which is where the return half of our ticket starts. Unfortunately, we couldn't sail, so I found cheap one-way tickets home on a charter flight. But can we reclaim the taxes on our tickets back from Cartagena?
Gina, if you cancel an entire long-haul itinerary, there is a chance of recovering some of the taxes, fees and charges that airlines apply. But since you took the outbound flight, the airline's obliged to calculate the difference between the fare you paid and the fare for the actual journey you took, which, given the strange way that aviation works, I can pretty much guarantee is more than the original cost of your ticket. So, not only is applying for a refund likely to be unsuccessful, it could also remind the airline that technically you owe them money. That's all for now, but if you've got a travel question, I'm here to help. Just email the Travel Show at bbc.com and I'll do my very best to find you an answer. From me, Simon Calder, the Global Guru, bye for now and see you next time.
The shores of Yalong Bay, where China's emerging money classes come to holiday. But sunny resort town of Sanya is fast growing popularity among foreign tourists too, including plenty of Europeans. The amount of resorts and five-star hotels emerging in this area is nothing but phenomenal.
Now this is the perfect vantage point as to see how much development there is in Sanya. Now along this golden coast here, there are probably about 10 to 15 different five-star resorts. And when I say five-star resorts, I mean humongous resorts. They are huge.
At present, we have about 50 five-star hotels, 11 of which are already accredited, and the others are built to the same standards. In the future, we will have a total of 38 in Hai Tang Wan. Currently, we have 9 up and running.
The number of Chinese multi-billionaires is expected to double in the next few years, and those with that amount of disposable income, luxury yachts is where a lot of them are parking their money. I met with Ben, who works at Vissen Yacht Club here in Sanya, to talk about the region's rapid growth, influx of luxury yachts, and of course my small chance to have a taste of the high life.
An increasing number of very wealthy Chinese business people like to holiday here because of the marina and the yacht clubs, but mainly because of the good weather.
With its golden sandy beaches and beautiful sunshine all year round, it's not hard to see why the Chinese officials are making Hainan out to be the Chinese equivalent of the French Riviera.
A Riviera city wouldn't be complete without its fair share of high-end shops. And of course, shopping is a national pastime, and the Chinese are building the world's largest duty-free shop here. But unlike the French Riviera, casinos and gambling are illegal.
We would rather explore lottery systems based on sports betting for non-profit purposes, things that come from the people, but also go back to the people.
Nude sunbathing is frowned upon, and there's been a recent crackdown by Chinese authorities on public beaches here. How very un-European. Perhaps the comparisons to the French Riviera are a little premature for the moment, but it's hard to deny the fact that this place has a tremendous amount of potential. Will it become the next Cannes? Who knows? One thing for sure though, Sanya is building its reputation as a fast-growing holiday destination within China.
Well, that's it for this week, but join us next week if you can, when
Rajan is in the Philippines 6 months after the strongest typhoon hit the country to see how the region is recovering.
Join me as I island hop, skip and jump through the country. I travel through the lush landscape and have a close encounter with the world's oldest primate. Before being healed by a shaman and getting a taste of how people here are addicted to entertainment. They get me literally dancing in the streets.
I can't dance, let alone in traffic.
That's next week, but don't forget, in the meantime, you can join us on all of our travels by jumping onto our website or following us on social media. But till then, from me, Henry Golding, and the rest of the Travel Show team here in China, it's goodbye.